We have plenty to discuss here in today's video, including some trade talk around a handful of teams, including the Edmonton Oilers, the Anaheim Ducks, as well as the Nashville Predators, the Los Angeles Kings, and as well as an update on the Leafs potentially signing another unrestricted free agent. We also have some updates on the contract extension for Adam Fantilli with the Columbus Blue Jackets, another PTO to announce in Nashville, a rumor of a PTO going on with the Ottawa Senators, plenty of other news around the NHL today as well, including the 2026 NHL draft dates revealed, some front office changes between the Sharks and the Rangers, and some East Coast hockey affiliate news as well. All that and more coming up next. Well, welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of things to take a look at here today. First up, we get some news from the NHL, from the league. Of course, right now is the beginning of the NHL's Players Media Tour taking place in Vegas. Of course, most NHL teams are kind of kicking off their seasons ahead of training camp this week. Most teams have some sort of charity golf tournament or some kind of team fundraiser get together of some sorts. And of course, all teams have a representative right now out doing the media tour. And of course, there's also members, of course, from the league. I know one member of the league, Steve Mayer, who's like the head of, I think his title is head of content. He's the one that does a lot of the events. So he will be very much involved with any outdoor games or the draft, anything basically that's not a game itself. He hinted during an interview at a possibility of the NHL doing an outdoor game in an upcoming Global Series event. Now, of course, didn't necessarily mean it was going to be for the coming season, but sometime in the not too distant future's what he was alluding to. So that's something that's interesting as well. Of course, we know they typically go to Europe or that part of the world at least once, sometimes twice during a season. So be curious to see what they have planned. We probably could see an outdoor game in one of the European cities or somewhere that they visit sometime here in the next couple of years by the sounds of things. Now, we also revealed the dates for the upcoming 2026 NHL draft, which essentially will be known as the Gavin McKenna draft. That's been revealed to be taking place in late June 26th, 27th. We do not have a location here just yet. Locations to be determined, but based on the dates, and we'll figure all that out. It's believed it's still going to be the same format we had last year after the GMs voted. Again, there's still enough of a support to do the decentralized version of the draft like we had in 2025. So I would think, though, that they're going to try to make some upgrades to it. The production, I don't think, really went off the greatest on TV. There was definitely some things about it that needs to be upgraded and done better for sure, because it was a tough watch. I always really enjoy the draft. It's one of my favorite events of the year, and it was really long drawn out, and I was really starting to lose interest, and it was just not well done. Based on the year before, what it was like watching from the Sphere, it was like night and day as far as quality of content and quality of production. So hopefully they can get something that's a little bit better next year, regardless of where the location ends up being. Now, as I mentioned, we got some front office news between the Sharks and the Rangers, and these are connected. The San Jose Sharks had an announcement quite early today that assistant general manager Ryan Clough, former player as well, who played with the team, has resigned. And he put out a statement saying essentially that he loved working for the Sharks. Of course, we know he spent a lot of time there as a player as well, but he loved working for the Sharks. I was grateful for the opportunity. Liked working with Mike Greer and the staff, but it was in the best interest for his family for him to announce his resignation. So didn't really know where that was going. I didn't know if there was something going on from a personal standpoint that he just had to, be away. Maybe he had to relocate. And then it was announced later in the day, the New York Rangers announced basically a bunch of front office changes, a whole basically revamped front office, which includes Ryan Clough joining them in the exact same role as an assistant general manager. So Ryan Clough will have the same job with the Rangers that he did with the Sharks. Now, of course, it just said it was better for family purposes. It didn't really indicate that there was, anything specific. I don't really know. Maybe he and his family were just looking to move back east. The opportunity came up with the Rangers, and he wanted to do that. I mean, I know he's originally from Newfoundland, played a long time in the league, spent a lot of time with the Sharks organization. I don't know. They didn't really elaborate, but doesn't really matter too much. Ryan Clough is now an AGM with the Rangers on Chris Drury's staff. They also promoted Ryan Martin to Associate General Manager, and he's the GM of AHL Hartford. Ryan Martin is considered one of the up-and-coming management people across the NHL that other teams have wanted to speak to regarding open GM spots when they become available. So I think this is a Rangers way of promoting him and giving him a raise to make sure that he remains in the organization, because they obviously don't want to lose him. They've also named Jim Sullivan Assistant General Manager, and they've named former NHLer, recently retired, and he played his last year in the league with the Rangers, Blake Wheeler, as a hockey operations advisor. I know Blake Wheeler did a little bit of work in media last year, and obviously he'll get into hockey ops advisory. I suspect he's probably trying a few things to kind of see exactly what he wants to do long term with his post-hockey playing career. Obviously wants to be involved with the game, and being a hockey operations advisor will probably expose him to a variety of stuff in management to see where he thinks he fits best on a longer term basis. So we'll see. But obviously a bunch of changes there for the New York Rangers. We had an announcement today between the Boston Bruins and the Maine Mariners, who announced a 3-year extension on their affiliation. Of course, the Maine Mariners are the East Coast Hockey League affiliate for the Bruins. So you get the Bruins, and then, of course, they have AHL Providence, and then the Maine Mariners been the East Coast Hockey League team. They've had that set up since 2021, and they get a 3-year extension to continue on with that same team, same affiliation. Of course, the Maine Mariners, as a name at least, and as a hockey team, have a ton of history. They haven't always had a team there based in the East Coast League. There was a long stretch back, I think when I was a kid, like in the 80s and 90s, when the Maine Mariners were the main AHL affiliate for the Boston Bruins. So they've always, Maine's got a long history of hockey and of great supporters there. Obviously, Maine's pretty close to Massachusetts as well, so easy to move players around between Boston, Providence, and where they are at in Maine. So obviously, it's just a little different to have them be an East Coast League team, but there's a long history of that name at least being used as an affiliation for the Boston Bruins. Some other East Coast Hockey League news as well. The Utah Grizzlies franchise, which is the East Coast Hockey League affiliate for the Colorado Avalanche, are expecting to announce probably within the next 24 to 48 hours that the franchise is going to be relocating, and they are expected to be moving to New Jersey. So we'll see. That could be announced either tomorrow or Wednesday. Some news on some PTO stuff. One's confirmed and one's speculation. But Dylan Gambrell, a longtime player in the league's been around a while. He's played with the Sens, the Sharks, started with San Jose, went to Ottawa, played in Toronto and a few other stops along the way here. He's got a PTO with the Nashville Predators, so he'll be going to their training camp, trying to earn a contract. And Senators General Manager Steve Staios, amongst a bunch of players, also spoke to the media today as the Senators had their annual charity golf tournament to kick off kind of their season a little bit ahead of training camp. They had basically the whole team was there in person except for Linus Ullmark, who's their representative at the NHL Media Tour. So he'll be in Vegas for a couple days, then he'll be rejoining them. But ultimately, Staios did confirm during his media that the Sens will be having a few PTOs at training camp, but of course wasn't ready to give any names or announce who those players might be just yet. But looking at some speculation amongst the fan base on social media, one name that made a lot of sense to me amongst a lot of other people talking about it online is possibly Robbie Fabry. We'll have to wait and see if this gets confirmed. I'm sure Fabry will get a PTO somewheres for sure. I don't think he's at a point where he can at least get that. I mean, he's not even 30 yet, but he's obviously got a long history of being a good player, being a winner at the junior level. Unfortunately, knee injuries, especially amongst all things, have been a detriment to him and certainly hindered his career from being more successful than what it has been. But he's a player who could go into a training camp with whether it be Ottawa or somewhere else, and earn a contract, cheap 1-year deal on a player who might still be able to score, 15, 17, 18 goals. Like, you just never know. Like, he's bounced around here a little bit, but there's several connections that he has to the Ottawa organization, whether it be Rob DeMaio, Sam Gagner. I mean, he does, and I believe he knows Steos as well. So, like, there is some connections there along the way with different people in the organization that would be quite familiar with Fabry. So it's kind of got people talking, wondering if he might be one of the players. Expectations are that they'll probably bring in a goaltender on a PTO as well. Not quite clear exactly who that could be. I know the main, probably biggest name out there still looking for work right now in NHL goaltenders would be Ilya Samsonov. However, I would be quite surprised if he was the guy, because I just don't know if that would be, I don't think that's something they would want to do. If I'm not mistaken, I think Samsonov and Allred kind of have some bad blood as well, so I don't think that would be wise from a team perspective. On to some other news around the NHL. Elliot Friedman was talking about the unsigned UFA Jack Roslovic. Elliot was mentioning how the Toronto Maple Leafs were one of the main teams linked to this player, but a lot of people thought he might be a player that they want to sign to improve their center depth. But Elliot was saying that the consideration to sign Roslovic would be somebody who they could see playing on the top line with Matthews and Nyes. Now, we know Michelli's probably, barring somebody else coming in, is probably going to be given an opportunity there. Like I said before, not having Mitch Marner, I'm curious to see how big of an impact it's going to be. I mean, he had a 100-point season, one of the most productive playmaking wingers in the NHL. Michelli, even if he were to match his career high from a couple of years back with the Utah franchise, he would still only be putting up half the production that you saw Marner do, right? So it makes me wonder, could he help fill the void? Yeah, it's possible. Could he be a low-key, sneaky good addition that could bounce back and help the team? Yes, he absolutely could. But is it going to be anywhere near the level what they had before with Marner? Probably not, right? That's not a realistic expectation. So makes you wonder. I mean, a guy like Roslovic with a little more experience, and would be a different kind of player. I think they're going to have to need, in my opinion, a variety of players who can kind of fill that spot. And I think different guys are going to get a look there maybe before they really settle on a full-time winger. They might have some rotations. You might see, Matthews and Nyes, Tavares and Nylander, and then really the wingers on both those lines. The third player might be, a lot of different guys trying to find the right look and the right mix, right match. So we'll see what happens. But obviously, if Roslovic does land in Toronto, based on the news from Friedman, it could be for a different role than many people kind of envisioned. Now, another name to watch that you're probably going to hear some speculation on, but you're not likely going to see a contract extension, is one of the top young stars in the game, is Blue Jackets forward Adam Fantilli. Don Waddell, the GM, had made some comments earlier that he was very interested in locking up Fantilli to a long-term deal. But the latest from Aaron Portzline, the Blue Jackets beat reporter for The Athletic, indicates that Fantilli and his agent Pat Brisson are in absolutely no hurry whatsoever and very likely have no interest in really getting into much of a negotiation and signing an extension anytime soon. Not to say that he doesn't want to be there or anything like that. I know Adam Fantilli had made mention when he was drafted how happy he was to go there. I don't think it has nothing to do with that, but I do believe it has all to do with the fact that it makes sense for Fantilli to hold off and see if he can match or beat last year's performance to get an even better contract. Last year, he was basically a 30-goal man and still, young in his career. He's going to be restricted, so they have no real worry to deal with as far as losing him. I mean, there's always the threat of an offer sheet, and, we thought this year was going to be a little bit potentially wild and nothing happened. So, obviously, it's, do they need to be aware of it? Yes, but it's not something they need to really stress about. But Fantilli is already projected by AFP Analytics, if he were to sign a long-term deal today, to be around $9.5 million is what they would project on a 7-8 year deal. So, if he has another season and scores 30-plus goals and gets his point totals up even higher to 60, 70 points, he could command maybe even more money, right? So with the cap really going up and really not any pressure to sign, it kind of makes sense. So if you hear chatter around Adam Fantilli this year, unless he and his agent change their mind, it's probably not going to happen. It'd be something that we see at the end of the season going into next summer would probably be the earliest. Now, on some news around the Los Angeles Kings, Ken Holland did have some comments in a recent interview as well, looking at a couple of things, talking about Adrian Kempe and Brandt Clarke. Now, with Adrian Kempe being in the final year of his contract, Holland makes mention that it's absolutely the team's top priority to work out an extension to keep the winger very much a big part of the team. We know Kempe's been there for his entire career and has done quite well. A big part of the team for sure. So it makes total sense that they would want to extend him, especially with it likely being the last year of Kopitar. You can't take a chance that you lose Kopitar and Kempe both after this season. That would be a dramatic loss and really reshape the top six group of the forward. So not really a wise move. So we don't know where things stand. There's been some words out there from some reporters suggesting that they've had some preliminary talks, but that there's still a big gap, around $1 million or so per year. That I think Kempe is looking for around 10. The team was around 9. So we'll see. When it comes to Brandt Clarke, Holland had a completely different tune on Clarke. He was not anxious to sign him to a long-term deal or get him signed ahead of being an RFA next year, really at all. Clarke is eligible for an extension, but he kind of, he made mention that he's got a bright future. He's a good player, but he really made a lot of humming and hawing excuses, in my opinion, to delay things and put things off, saying essentially that he's asked around a lot of different opinions around the organization about Clarke, and that he still feels he needs to see him play more himself to form more of an opinion on where things stand. So it's kind of a wait and see approach with Clarke. There was obviously a lot of speculation in the offseason that between Brandt Clarke and Jordan Spence, one was going to be traded, that they didn't want to have both defensemen in the lineup at the same time, and then Spence did end up getting moved to the Senators. So with Clarke remaining there, you would think that his role would increase, and long term, to me, he makes sense to kind of replace Doughty, right? I don't know if he'll ever be as good as Doughty was. He's had a heck of a career, but Clarke's potential is very, very high, and if they have anybody on their roster who has the potential to come close, it would be him, in my opinion. But Holland just seems a little non-committal on the player just yet. So again, I do have just a kind of a bad feeling that the Kings are going to waste this player and end up moving him. They traded Spence, which I didn't really agree. I mean, I didn't think it was a wise idea. They brought in Dumoulin and Ceci to move out Spence. I don't think that makes them better. If they end up moving Clarke as well, with the other guys around him getting older, I think we could see this team really get worse in a hurry in a couple of years' time. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how things are progressed here with Clarke. I just gotta, Holland at this point is non-committal. And I just got a feeling that I just hope they don't mishandle his development, basically is what I'm saying here. From Daily Faceoff, Stephen Ellis has a recent article out looking at a lot of the remaining restricted free agents. A couple ones that I thought were most interesting. One being Luke Evangelista with Nashville. It sounds like he feels that, the best case scenario is I settle on a bridge deal. Training camp usually kind of spawns a deadline and kind of gets things moving. We'll see if they can get that sorted out so he doesn't end up missing time. But it is believed that if there's a scenario out there that an RFA that's unsigned could be moved, many people, including Ellis, feel that Evangelista might be the most likely of that bunch, that the Predators might be the team that's more willing to kind of shake things up, if you will, coming off of a horrible season last year that was. Another name to watch who could be moved but could also settle on a bridge deal as well would be Alexander Holtz with the Vegas Golden Knights. So again, another couple of young players there that I think they're the main ones that do have a little bit of a question mark around their future. whereas some of the other guys I think are less likely to get dealt and are more likely to get something figured out, like Luke Hughes, Mason McTavish, etc. Now, Edmonton, let's talk about the Oilers here for a moment. Elliot Friedman did make some mention of the Oilers on I think it was the Donnie Daly show he was on in Vancouver talking about some stuff. And he mentions that the Oilers didn't end up obviously doing anything with goaltending in the offseason. And essentially, it wasn't that they didn't try. They explored the goalie market quite thoroughly, according to Elliot, but they didn't really find anything that made sense. And as we've talked about this subject before, it's not really surprising. Like when we looked around the league, like the only one of the names that kind of made sense to me early on was we knew Gibson out of Anaheim was likely getting dealt. There had been rumored for so long, and he did. He ended up going to Detroit, though, not Edmonton, because there was a lot of, Friedman had mentioned a number of times before that Gibson would waive his no-move clause or potential or partial no-move to go to the Oilers, and that never ended up coming to be. So ultimately, with that being said, there really just wasn't much else on the market that you could justify paying a hefty price for that's really an upgrade. So they're coming into camp with Skinner and Pickard. Again, we don't know what's going to happen, but I would suggest that if anything, they're going to try to maybe find a goalie who's a little younger than Pickard to come in and challenge Skinner, and somebody who could take over as the number one if need be. There was some talk about Cam Talbot out of Detroit now that they've got Gibson as well. So there was also some thought that they checked in on the younger goalie with the Red Wings, Sebastian Cossa. But I'm not sure how willing Steve Yzerman is to move him. But at the end of the day, the Edmonton Oilers tried really hard to find a goaltending solution. Nothing made sense, and they're going to likely continue that here throughout the first part of the offseason. So we'll see. And in Anaheim, another player, though, to kind of watch as well is young defenseman Pavel Mintyukov. Now, I don't think he's a player that the Ducks are actively searching to trade, but we know the Ducks are a team that's been mentioned in a variety of rumors, that they've been linked to a lot of different stuff out there. And Mintyukov is a player that just might be becoming a little bit redundant in their lineup. You've got guys like Jackson Lacombe, who's really broken through as probably being the top offensive D-man on this unit. You got a guy like Owen Zellweger, who's also very good offensively, good puck mover, great skater. And then you get Mintyukov. They're all left shot defensemen. So there has been some talk and speculation that the Ducks, if they're willing to make a bigger trade for anything to make this team better down the road, that Mintyukov very well could be a name to watch. I don't think there's anything imminent or anything that's going to happen like anytime soon on that player. But if the Ducks have an opportunity to really get, like, especially if they can get like a forward or somebody to really make an upgrade in another area, then I think Mintyukov would be a player that they would consider moving for the right deal, just because of the strength of the depth at the position. That, like I said, having so many guys that are built the same and play the same gets a little redundancy there. So it could be a name to watch for sure. So, and of course, Muriel Ferrero, as we know in San Jose, another name to watch as well for another left shot defenseman who can play at both ends of the ice. Probably more known for defensive side of the game more so than the offensive side. But, you know, ultimately he could be a nice addition to a number of teams out there as well that are looking for some top four upgrades. He's played a lot of minutes with the Bad Sharks team and actually has done reasonably well considering all things, in my opinion. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.